Welcome again to 12-Minute Mark. Pastor Rich here from Safe Harbor. Going through Mark line by line. Continue to invite others. If you can do that on your social media feeds, invite others to part of our study. Hopefully it almost becomes sort of an addiction to you, that 12-minute good addiction that you have every day, that you come to the Gospel of Mark. We just finished yesterday with our first Markan sandwich, where there's a story and then the main story in the middle, and then finally the last story. And that was starting to really give us an idea of faith, that the faith of the bleeding woman was the model for Jairus, the synagogue ruler. Now today what we're going to do is we're going to see another sandwich, but we're only going to cover the first piece of bread. And then on your own, I would like you to read the rest of it and try to figure out how the sandwich is put together and what is the overall message of this sandwich here. So starting then in chapter 6, it says Jesus left that place. Again, this is Mark being super fast. It's almost like the whole gospel happens in just a few days, because it's one of the most frequent words in the Gospel of Mark is the word immediately, and that he goes. And it says after he left that place, and so that place was, he just raised Jairus' daughter, the synagogue ruler. And then it's after he left that place, chapter 6, he went to his hometown accompanied by his disciples. And on the Sabbath, he went into the synagogue to preach. And many who heard him were amazed. Where'd this guy get this stuff? They asked. What's this wisdom that's been given him that he even does miracles? Isn't this the carpenter? Isn't this Mary's son? Aren't his brothers James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon? And aren't his sisters here with us? And to them he was a scandal. Jesus said to them, only in his hometown, among his own people and his own house and relatives, does a prophet have no honor. And he could do no miracles there, except lay his hands on a few sick people and heal them. And now Jesus was amazed at their lack of faith. Well, then he went around teaching from village to village, calling the 12 to him. He sent them out 2 by 2, giving them authority to drive out demons and teach. And these were his instructions. Take nothing for your journey except a staff, no bread, no bag, no money belt, wear sandals, but no extra clothes. Whenever you enter a town, stay there until you leave. And if any place will not welcome you, shake the dust off your feet as you leave as a testimony against them. So they went out and preached that people should repent. And they drove out many demons and anointed many sick people with oil and healed them. Well, we'll stop right there. There's a lot there in just these 13 verses. And this is Jesus going back home. Home isn't Bethlehem. He was born in Bethlehem, but remember, they left Nazareth to go to Bethlehem. So he grew up in Nazareth in the trade of his father, the carpenter. And when he gets there, you would expect that he'd be the hometown hero. I mean, this is the most popular person in the region by now. And word has had to reach them. But they're completely unimpressed. And there's the old saying, familiarity breeds contempt. And that's kind of what we see here. That as he's there, he preaches, and obviously it says some of the people were amazed, but they're like, who do you think you are? We remember when you were just a little squirt running around with a hammer and nails. And then we see even some deeper resentment come, because they refer to him as Mary's son, not Joseph's son. And that's a way to say that he's illegitimate, that his parents weren't married. And as you can, the fascinating thing, the miraculous virgin birth, we know they weren't married. That's the whole Christmas story. And we enjoy that as part of the miraculous founding of our faith. But not his hometown. That was nothing but the gossip mill that went around of, they're not even married. And so that's, he grew up as in illegitimacy according to his community in his hometown. And it says, because it basically says that to them, he was a scandal. That's the old scandal of having him out of wedlock. And so they're not impressed. This was the kid that, the people had whispered behind his back all his life, and now he comes home with something special, and they'll have none of it. And it's interesting that it says he would do no miracles there. It says he could do no miracles there, because so far we've seen the miracles that even though he has the power to do the miracles, they're activated by the faith of the person. And since he finds no faith there, he does no miracles there. And then it says, except lay his hands on a few sick people and heal them. It's kind of comical that he says he does no miracles except those, which those are pretty amazing miracles. But since he was just stopping the wind and the waves, and he was just raised a girl from the dead, we think maybe we should expect something much greater. But he doesn't do any more than that. And so far, at the end of almost every story, we get the little section at the end. It says, and the people were amazed, right? All through the Gospel of Mark so far, people have been continually amazed. But now in his hometown, the people are offended, and he's the one amazed. He's amazed at their lack of faith. And so he leaves that place, he leaves his hometown, doesn't stay there long, and now he's going to send out his disciples, 2 by 2. And he gives them an interesting sort of send-off. Normally, when you go on a trip, you make a list of what to pack. Instead, Jesus gives them a list of what not to pack. These guys really travel light. They come off like survivalists, really. No money. Don't even take a bag. It's like, no bags, no luggage. Not only do you don't need anything to take a bag with you, and you don't need to be gathering stuff. No, this isn't a tourist trip. There's not going to be any souvenir collecting. Don't bring anything back. And Jesus gives them the authority, and he tells them to go in a place and stay there the whole time that they've been welcomed into a home. So they would be itinerant for a while in one home, and they would then go out and teach and preach and cast out demons and heal people. And this really stuck for the early church. And years later, in some of the early church writings, we'll find that a false prophet was a prophet who went into a town and kept moving from house to house. Jesus says, stay in that one place. And the idea is that they would move from house to house to see which house had the best food. The disciples, again, they're always gathering to eat. Food is a big deal. That might not have anything to do with why he's not having them move around. But the idea was that you would get people who were just bums who would sort of move around and see who had the best hospitality, and then they would stay there. So they're to stay there. And really what we see here is the disciples at a high point. Typically, when they're with Jesus, they say the wrong things. They respond the wrong way. They'll argue with one another about him. They seem to be missing the point. They're good for us to keep our eyes on the disciples, even though almost every verse in the gospel, of course, is about Jesus. Jesus is what the gospel's about. But it's interesting to see these disciples who are fallen and who continue to make mistakes. We can relate to them. But here we really see them at their high point, that they go out 2 by 2, just like Jesus said, and they stay at a house, and it says people are being healed, exorcisms are being performed, the gospel is going out, and so it really is a major high point for them. But as soon as Jesus gets back, what happens is again, it seems like they start to mess up quite a bit. So this little section here, as the disciples go out, it almost reminds us of the book of Acts. This is a kind of a foreshadowing of how the book of Acts will take place. After Jesus ascends and it's just these guys left, they'll do the same thing. We see them going out 2 by 2, and they stay at someone's house, and they preach, and they teach, they heal, they do exorcisms. And so just like when we saw Jesus a few days ago, and he redefined family as those who do sitting around him doing the will of God. And I said that's a kind of a foreshadowing of the church. This here is kind of a foreshadowing of the work of the apostles in the book of Acts, because that's pretty much what they will do. And anytime they get distracted from that, they say, oh, we have to be about the word, about spreading the word. So it's good to see it. Now, if we had time, we would have went into the story of John the Baptist and then the disciples when they returned. So what we have here is the first piece of bread of a sandwich of Jesus sending the disciples out. And then we have the story of the beheading of John the Baptist, which likely happened a long time ago. It doesn't fit here chronologically. It's not part of the story like we would typically say, and then this happened, then this happened. Much of Jesus' story is saying, and then this, and then he did this. But this is a flashback to the death of John the Baptist. And then it goes into the apostles gathering around. And so you can read that on your own tonight, and tomorrow we'll cover John the Baptist and the disciples coming back, and we'll get into exactly how that sandwich all fits together and what is the big picture message of the sandwich. Well, that takes us right up to our 12-minute mark, and we will again see you tomorrow. God bless you.